everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. As we continue to traipse down this Halloween season, you know we had to give you guys a bonus episode. Now, traditionally, for those who are new, these are just really shorter bites, as you would, of us having a conversation about something. It could be random topics from the history of Halloween.
You know, like a podcast.
Yeah, it could be anything else. Think of these as the fun-size version of the normal podcast that you know and love.
Except minus movies.
Yeah, we're not talking about movies today, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
Not like the normal one.
I mean, we kind of are.
To be fair,
Well, yeah.
we do stray from points from time to time. And these are delightfully informal at times, in stark contrast to our normal regimented podcast.
Very extremely formal.
Super militaristic, yeah.
So taking all that into account, Dan, what are we talking about today here?
Big
Today
booty
we're talking
bitches.
About, I wish we were. Can we change the topic, please? Today we are talking about horror in the 2020s, what we think, what we see, what we expect.
All right, well, as Grandpa Justin used to say, sometimes the best way to look forward is to start from looking down. And by down, I mean where we are right now. And by right now, I mean up to this point in 2022. That being said, what trends this decade have we seen recently? Has there been anything that you feel like has been on the rise over the last couple of years that you've seen in the horror? Granted, we're only 2 years in, so I'll let you get 2019 as well. But is there anything that you've seen that's kind of been growing in popularity over the last couple of years?
I mean, honestly, I just think horror is getting more popular than ever. I think that we're in somewhat of a horror renaissance, and I'm glad to see it just as a general thing. We're just getting more, terrifying content, and I'm all about that.
Mm-hmm. Dan, where do you augur?
I know what you're saying. 90% of the motherfuckers who listen to this will not.
Like me. I think I've been seeing a lot of resurgence of older like remakes or
Imaginings?
reimaginings. Yeah,
Yeah.
Of some of the classics, Halloween,
Scream.
and them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're getting a Hellraiser,
also,
I think, next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the Hellraiser stuff is coming out next month.
Soon. Yeah.
Oh, next month?
No,
Damn.
Yeah.
not next month, this month. In fact,
This
Nico is
month.
probably out right now.
Wow!
If it's not out now, it's out like real soon.
Yeah, it's got to be out now.
Shout outs to us for planning this shit ahead of time.
So if this is confusing to anyone, I'm sorry. We recorded this in September. I lied. I'm a bad person. Okay?
Do you remember?
But it actually is, believe it or not, the 21st night of September. So well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Nico. But
Of course.
I'll say this. When this episode is released, the Hellraiser stuff should have come out. None of us will check, though, to make sure. One thing that I think we've seen very recently as well is I think over the last couple of years, we've seen a very strong push. I can't say resurgence because I don't think there ever really was one too big, but we're seeing a lot of diversity and a lot of voices that weren't heard previously in horror
Mm-hmm.
come through. Obviously, you have Jordan Peele kind of leading the charge on that front, but we can't forget you have Nia DaCosta as well in that mix. And you also have, movies like His House that we saw and we really liked.
Mhm.
You have Blood Quantum
Quantum, yeah.
that was also really, really, really good. And so even Prey, right? Even Prey. So
Prey was so fucking good.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I definitely think that's a space that we haven't really had in horror that I think
Mhm.
recently in a couple years we've been seeing a lot of growth in those spaces.
I also think that we're gonna get, I think, somewhat inevitably more prestige horror.
Well, hang on,
That seems to be on the rise. Oh no! Oh no! I said the magic words.
No.
Oh gosh!
No,
We're
no,
gonna
no.
lock Justin away in his candelabra.
My man, I'm gonna call you the leapfrog because you jumped ahead. No, I'm playing. So I want to see now that we've got the ground under our feet. We've looked down and ascertained our place in the universe. Some Blaze Blue shit. We've observed ourselves. Now,
Damn.
is there anything
Quantum
that you...
selfies?
The picture only comes out if you look at it. Yeah.
What?
If you don't look at it, is there a
The
picture?
picture's still there.
No, you have to see, because otherwise there may be a picture, there may not be a picture.
You don't know.
God damn it. Okay, sure.
Bear shits in the woods and nobody's there to see it.
Did it
Does
even?
the bear exist?
Who's to say what kind of shit it really was? So moving on,
That's some shit.
is there anything you can tell how we just adhere to the highest standards here on DOTD? But I also want to ask, is there anything that you guys see maybe getting big that's not already?
Gosh, I think that just maybe there, Captain, there's some prestige horror on the horizon.
Hey, you let me finish my sentence, trifling hoe. So
You didn't let me finish mine. Suck my dick.
yeah, because that's an answer to a question I haven't asked. Called that the quantum question.
Yeah, well, you're questioning the answers that I didn't need
Oh
to give.
shit, questions I haven't
Why
asked.
won't you look at me during?
Tell me that's not the most melancholy anime title ever, bro.
Actually, yeah, no, that's some real, like, your name shit.
Yeah. Yo, Makoto Shinkai, hit me up. So, what do you expect to get big that's maybe kind of underground right now or isn't already super mainstream? Now, I was mature about this question. Fuck you, Nico. But what do you see growing?
My hatred and ire for your bullshit.
I think that's kind of a hard question.
Why is that?
I don't know. I feel like I just feel like it's already growing,
Right.
Yeah.
and the things that are sort of not mainstream, quote unquote,
Right.
would be the things like I think we already kind of mentioned, like especially you, Justin, like the more diversity in the genre
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
is getting to be more mainstream. I don't know that it's quite there yet, but I think it's getting there. And I do expect to see a lot more of that. And I think I've noticed too, while you were saying that I think it's more overtly diverse as well.
Intentionally so.
Right. Because, horror has almost always historically talked about issues in society and things, but a lot of times it's more buried. It's not quite on the surface. But a lot of the more recent movies are like, you can't not pick that up,
Yeah.
like it's pretty in your face. And I think that's a good thing,
Yeah.
One thing that I think, and this might be kind of like a hot take, I don't know, but I definitely see, I think, gore becoming more mainstream and more prominent. So when I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and by the way, you can always check our review of that one. It's on our website, dotdhorror.com/episodes. But you would notice that that movie was pretty gory. And just as like a general note, I feel like studios are,
It wasn't the Texas Chainsaw Pillow fight.
if only, that would have been a great movie.
Probably would have been a better movie.
Different
Yeah.
genre maybe, but great movie. But I think that when movies really have that rated R, I think we're going to see more movies really taking advantage of that and really pushing the envelope, because I feel like we are starting to finally move past the age of horrible CGI, because I'm not going to lie to anyone here. Throughout the early 2000s, in particular, as well as the late 90s, I guess, horrible CGI was a thing. Like
Yeah.
movies that just, I'm like, yo, this looks so fake. Like, why even bother? There was a kind of move away from the practical effects of the 80s. And I don't know if there were budget constraints. I'm not entirely certain as to why. Obviously, some things you have to CGI, and it lets you do that better without a doubt. But I feel like now CGI has gotten to a point where it looks better, but not only that, people are kind of having a little bit of a rebirth when it comes to practical effects. I'm seeing a lot of movies that are, they're more tight gripped when it comes to the CGI, so to speak. And, sometimes they prefer to let practical effects stand on themselves. I think, and while this movie came out quite a while ago now, I always love shouting out The Void, because practical effects, I fucking love those. And I feel like ever since I saw that, I've really kept an eye out for it. And I feel like it's been growing more and more that I've seen. Now, Nico, you talked a little bit about prestige horror. Why do you see that kind of growing? I have my own answer to that, and I think that's a fair point to make. Why do you see that growing?
I think it's because we're getting so many new directors like those you've listed so far, but just to add to them, like Robert Eggers, Ari Aster, among others, these are all people who have really profound visions for what their films are going to be, and they just know how to make a damn good film. So I think just the prominence of these names getting more and more notoriety is going to lead to more thoughtful horror content that has a sort of just like its own branding attached to this. Like, oh, this is a Tarantino joint, or oh, this is this is a Scorsese flick. I think there's going to be in a few like years, we're going to be putting other names up there with those two.
I also think that as a society, we seem to be getting more open about like mental health issues and things, which a lot of times prestige horror can deal with those kind of issues and present those in the film, or even just sort of like more of the like inner character dramas and things. I think as a society, we're a little bit more open to that than we used to be.
I agree with that. I also think, and this is kind of like a double-headed serpent, if you will, so follow me down this trail. I think that, first off, the rise of prestige horror, which...
Is it two heads on the same end of the snake, or is it like one head on each side?
No, we're not doing like a I shit out of my mouth, you shit out of my mouth kind of scenario. Like,
so we're not doing a cat dog thing?
No.
Okay.
It's like, imagine a hydra. Visualize a hydra, if you will.
Solid. Okay.
So I think that, first off, horror is now more mainstream. And I think from the director point of view of someone like Ari Aster or something like that, I think horror is actually one of the better genres that you can use to, like Dan was saying, explore certain, dramatical elements such as trauma. I think horror oftentimes makes a really good lens that you can look at that stuff through. I mean, to be a little personal, like for me, one reason I got so deep into horror is because, like, I don't know, seeing like a macabre alien from another planet come down and just like fuck everyone's shit up made me feel better about my shit. So it's like, all right, fair play. But on the other side, I do see a little bit of a schism, and it's not one that I'm saying is brought on by the fans or anything like that. I'm saying it's horror as a whole, as like given that whole debacle, for example, where that one that one person on Twitter posted, Alien's not a horror movie, cue like the massive rampaging onslaught
fucking opinion
that happened on that. But I'm saying, like, their horror,
Titanic's not a romance.
Aside from just like straight up like pulse pounding action flicks, that and horror are kind of two of the biggest genres that Hollywood turns its nose up at, particularly when giving awards for things aside from maybe makeup awards. But like Hollywood generally is like, oh, that stuff is very low brow. Things like Midsummer, Hereditary, these are films that are easier for more snobbish people to digest because they feel like there's something more to latch onto there. And in some respects there is. However, I do agree with you that I do see that increasing, but I do maybe see a little bit of a genre split where you're going to have, splatter films, alien films.
Oh, I'm sure.
Kind of films that, are on one side, and then films like Midsummer on the other. And I think those movies in particular are definitely more well liked on the critical side.
So here's the ultimate question for the decade. Do you think we're going to get a good Resident Evil IP reboot?
Okay, you said it, Nico.
No.
So I want to ask, what's the next series / movies that we think should be either remade or get a sequel? And I'm going to lead. Stop fucking making Resident Evil movies. Just stop. We need a moratorium on that shit for like 30 fucking years.
Yeah.
And then we can try again. Okay? Because I have real strong opinions about everything Resident Evil, And it is so fucking sad that you can't just take a story that is seemingly very obvious and easy to make that so many people love, and you always want to fuck it about left and right until you get, it's like, stop making your OC created characters, stop putting your significant others in movies, just stop that shit all fucking together. Just make a fucking movie that at least somewhat follows and respects the plot. It doesn't have to be a direct A to B thing. It doesn't have to be. But the shit I've seen haunts me. But what other movies do you think might deserve a sequel?
Go off, King.
I don't know about, this is not exactly the question, but I kind of want to see more like anime. Like horror.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That would be kind of cool. I still haven't watched the Higurashi remake. I still got to do that.
I gotta do that too.
But more things along that vein, I think, would be cool.
Agreed. I mean, off the top of my head, whenever I'm like, hey, is there any kind of like horror anime for me to watch? Or like, oh, you can watch Shiki or another. I'm like, okay, what if I saw those? And it's just like people start busting out. Like you gotta kind of dig a little deeper to really find some stuff. I've been on the hunt though. But Nico, what are you trying to see more of?
Yo, real talk. I want to see within the next, like, or I guess just this decade, I want to see directors take advantage of VR. I want to see some fucking VR horror. I feel like that would be incredibly immersive and possibly vomit-inducing, but still just really, really surreally cool. There was a student of mine last year who brought in his headset, and just some of the shit you could do with that was unreal. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if any, innovations are made in that regard.
Dude, I experienced real VR for the first time like a month and a half ago, maybe.
Shit's nuts, right?
And yeah, it was at this Vincent Van Gogh thing. And I mean, it was like, I was like, oh shit, they actually out here doing work on this. So I could maybe see someone doing some horror shit, bro. That would fuck people up, bro.
I don't know if I could do that. Like I think that might be like too immersive for horror for me. Like I would shit myself.
Yeah. There's a solid chance of that shit. I ain't gonna lie. There's a solid chance. How would you guys feel about, there's been talk about potentially remaking, Big Trouble in Little China. There's been talks of remakes of that. Now that's not horror, but what I wanted to mention is John Carpenter's other film, The Thing. How do you think that movie should be remade? Now, we haven't reviewed it for the podcast yet. Listeners, I'll put it all on my back. It is entirely Nico's fault why we haven't reviewed this one yet.
Sure. Yeah.
But,
okay.
I mean, it has a prequel that people are kind of lukewarm about. And maybe we should watch the prequel first, to be honest. But people are lukewarm about it. But The Thing is a beloved movie. It's really up there with Alien as, when you talk about big horror movies, it's up there with like Alien, Nightmare, like all the classics, really. So do you think that movie could be remade? Do you think it could be remade correctly?
I think it definitely could with the right director. I just don't know who would take it if not John Carpenter. And they would have to have a very, very, very intentional direction with their art design so as not to make everything look like a weird, PS2 asset.
I think it could be remade, but I don't think it needs to.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be either.
It was such a good movie, but I mean, thinking about it too, is there anything that could be made better about that movie today? And not necessarily, I'm not trying to like dick ride the movie, but like it holds up wonderfully. Like there's not like the practical effect, like everything is just really well done. And I don't know that there's something like technology or anything today that would necessarily make that movie that much better that it needs to be remade,
Fair. And just as a quick last note, I've also heard rumors of a remake of another Carpenter joint, At the Mouth of Madness.
Oh, sick.
That could be interesting to see.
I think the one that I want to be remade the most out of everything that we've seen, though, is Event Horizon.
Ooh. That is a good shot.
I would love to see that done with 2020's, standards and everything. That would be a just true tour de force.
I could not help but agree more.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything you don't want to see in, the decade 2020?
Yeah, I don't want to see TJ Miller ever again.
Yeah.
Sorry
Just
about
like
that. I
real
beat my
fucking
chest.
talk. I hate that guy.
I beat my chest in agreement. And it all started from the fucking time in Underwater. We have a really tense scene. And this man,
It was
like,
Leviathan, not Underwater.
No,
We
it was
keep making
Underwater.
That. Was it?
yes.
Yes, it was. Yes,
Because
it
he
was. You're right.
tells-
You're right.
Because he tells Kristen Stewart, you delicate elf, you or some shit. And I'm like, he's like, you delicate tittied elf or something. And I'm just like,
It's real fucking weird.
I'm just like, bro, why are you here? Just die already. And I'm so glad when his character dies, bro. And you know what? I don't even hate the dude in like other genres. He said, not
He's
lying.
just
But-
just immeasurably annoying motherfucker in horror movies.
Yeah, I'm just like, bruh. But anyways, the good point, Nico. I could not help but applaud that more. Dan, anything you don't want to see?
I don't want to see more movies and shows that are like, hey, we're super 80s. I think, or even like 90s.
To be fair,
I-
90s hasn't been pimped as much as the 80s.
Not as
It's
much.
going
not as
to
much.
soon.
I think it will.
30-year cycle, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a limited amount that you can do that. Like Stranger Things obviously is the big one.
Right.
hmm
And that was cool. It was one of the, maybe not the first, I can't say that for sure, but one of anyways.
hmm
And it did it really well.
Fear Street.
Yeah, Fear
But
Street.
Fair Street
thank
was
you.
90s, though. Although it did have the slasher camp, so I
Yeah.
take that back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, Fear Street, mixed reviews and mixed feelings on it. But like that was again one of the few that I've seen that has done the 90s era.
Mm.
Anyways. Obviously slashing from the 80s, but time frames, setting of the 90s. But I think maybe the 90s can only be done one or two more times, and then
That's it.
that's it.
I will say, I don't even mind movies that are set from that time period. It's more
Oh,
so
yeah.
when they purposely try to evoke like oodles of nostalgia that I'm like, bruh, come on, son.
Hey
Come
guys, remember Surge?
I mean, don't get me wrong. In Fear Street, when they were playing Machine Head, I was like headbanging, but I was like, all right, Justin,
Yeah.
enough. But I will say this too. One thing that I don't want to see is, because there's really no excuse for it anymore. I don't want to see people in charge of projects that they don't fucking understand.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't say that just out of like Resident Evil bitterness, but I also say that just because I've seen movies where there's awesome source material and there's awesome things behind it, but it doesn't really line up all of a sudden because it's like, wait a second, you didn't really give a shit about this. And this is going to sound weird. The opposite of that, and what I would like to see more of, is things like Color Out of Space, the one with Nick Cage. Because that movie is a fucking love letter to cosmic horror.
Yeah, just more Nick Cage, honestly.
Hey, he was actually in a couple
Yeah,
horror
that
movies
too.
that we do have to review. There's one with animatronics.
Yeah, dude.
So it's fucking wild.
Still gotta watch Mandy.
We
Yeah.
do. So all that being said, we're gonna bring it to a little wrap here.
Oh, can I bring up one more?
Go for it.
It's not movie related, but I really want to see, or it could be movie, I don't know. But I want to see a Hideo Kojima.
Oh,
Yes.
PT.
Absolutely.
This man brought up PT. Yo, when this man said
Yeah.
PT without saying it, my heart got weak because
Uh,
my fucking dumbass deleted that shit off my PlayStation,
yo, same.
and now I can never get it back.
I regret it every
Every day.
single time
You
I
know
boot
what's
it up.
you know what's the worst part? It's still in my downloads, and every now and again
Oh,
it'll
no.
remind me, cannot download PT, and I'm like, I know,
Yeah.
keep trying, just keep trying. But what a fucking that demo alone, y'all. If Hideo Kojima can get back with my man Guillermo del Toro, and they can do something about that,
Maybe Death Stranding will take an even darker turn into horror territory. I would
Yo.
be so here for that.
maybe,
Could be.
maybe. I'm also
I feel like a Death Stranding movie could be
yo.
interesting.
I hate that I'm about to say this about a game that is essentially delivering packages, but I would watch the fuck out of that movie. I love that game.
I'll say this though. I'll say this. I'm also really here for people like who are really into horror, just doing more things within the genre. Like Guillermo del Toro has been making horror movies. Man hopped in a game or two. Like, all right, I see you. That's what's up. And I really appreciate just like, and I can't believe we haven't said this, but I feel like there's a lot more horror metal nowadays. Like bands, just granted, horror and metal have always had a really close relationship. There's always been horrific songs.
There's a
in
game
metal.
that just came out for the most recent generation of consoles. I think it's like called Hell Battler or something. It's some sort of like mix of Guitar Hero meets Doom. It's like a rhythm game with heavy metal and demons and shit. So there's a basis
Hey,
for
listen,
that.
man. I just played a game called the Texorcist, where you have to like it's like a word typing training thing, but as you're word
Y'all
typing,
get on out of that girl now before.
no, you gotta like text it and like or you type up words and shit like that, like words from like the fucking like verses and shit. And as you do that, like you got to move your dude around the screen and like fight off demons. It's mad complex. Y'all wouldn't be ready for that.
Damn.
But in any case, if you have an opinion on where horror currently is or where you think it's gonna go in this wild and wonderful decade of 2020, let us know. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. That's Don't Open That Door. Plus, you can check out everything we've done on our website. That is, of course, DOTDhorror.com. But till then, look to the future. Take care of yourselves. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.